welcome to this episode of the Toffee Blues Opposition View. As always, Max here, and coming up tomorrow for the Blues at Goodison Park, it's Fulham. First time back in the Premier League for 4 years after getting promoted via the playoffs last season. I was made aware by the lads who I did the interview with at Fulham Focus, which is the Fulham fansite and podcast, that Fulham in their last 26 league games at Goodison Park have not picked up a league point. So that's 22 defeats before draws, and they haven't picked a point up at Goodison Park since 1959. Naturally, being an Evertonian, I'm inclined to think that hoodoo is just made to be shattered on Saturday. Just Everton as a verb had become quite prominently used. But the lad who I spoke to, Morgan Colton, at Fulham Focus, seemed adamant that Fulham wouldn't overturn that. He predicted a 2-2 draw in the end. We talked quite in depth about a lot of issues surrounding Fulham. We talked about their journey from the Championship back to the Premier League, what went on at the club during those 4 years, changes in management, changes in players, of course, the great summer that they've just had, and the transfer business that they got done. We discussed that as well. Talked about the ownership as well. Obviously, Shad Khan is interested in purchasing Wembley, and looks to that wheel seems to be turning in terms of the FA selling Wembley. So that was discussed a little bit too. And of course, we talked about the game tomorrow and what we expect. So hopefully you enjoy the interview. Cheers. Joined by Morgan now of the Fulham fan group, Fulham Focus. Morgan, it's great to have you on. Thanks for speaking to us, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Max. I look forward to it.
Yeah, great. So first and foremost, as we were just saying off camera there, I've always had quite a soft spot for Fulham. I mean, growing up, they were kind of always present in the Premier League. Obviously, this season, the first time back in the Premier League for 4 years. I always say about sides when they get relegated, the tendency to get lost in the Football League. So not many sides bounce straight back up. So to start off, I was just going to ask, what have the last 4 years been like, and what was the experience like getting promotion through playoffs last season?
Well, it was when we went down. I think we were in such turmoil. We'd only just been taken over by the Khans. We went through 3 managers in the space of less than, actually it was about 4 months, I think. And we were a complete mess of a football club. Like, nothing was going right. Our average age of our squad was around 30. And when we went down under sort of the managership of a guy called Felix Magath. Yeah. And he's one of those old school Germans you got from about 1939 to 1945. It was awful. Yeah. And he lasted a few months in the Championship, and he went and we got Kit Simons in. It was the kind of feel-good manager. It was like, the equivalent of getting like David Unsworth sort of stepping up to your role. And he came in, he got the sort of fans G'd up again. There was a bit more sort of going on. And then it didn't quite go right. His tactical sort of knowledge was limited at best. He was a good coach for the under-21s at the time, but wasn't quite there for the Championship. And then when he left, we bought in Slav, and it took a while to gel. I mean, we watched some truly dreadful games in that first sort of half a season. And then the season after, it just started coming together. And we made a really towards the end of the 2016-17 season, we made a really good push, got to the playoffs, and unfortunately lost out to Reading that time round. And then last season, we started off, and it was a bit of a headache from the season before. And we were sort of Tom Kearney, he was injured for a lot of it. And then towards Christmas, something happened. We went away to Hull. We were 2-0 down at half time, and we got it back to 2-2. And then just this amazing run began. And 23 games unbeaten. We went up to Birmingham on the last day of the season. A bunch of us walked as well from Fulham to Birmingham for that game. And we got there, and the expectation was high, but we were just like, we're in the playoffs. Yeah. We've come this far on this run. And everyone was just so happy that we'd sort of come to this point of the season and in it, in with the chance of getting promoted again. Unfortunately, that day we lost 3-1. Cardiff had drawn, and we could have actually gone up if we'd won that game. But then, obviously, there was the playoffs. The amazing feeling when we beat Derby at home, having been 1-0 down from the first leg, and then we got to Wembley, and everything around that. It was just kind of, it was almost better than going up automatically, just because it all just built up to that sort of crescendo right at the end. And just when that sort of final whistle went, and we're in the Premier League, it was like, wow, the last 4 years have been absolutely crazy. But we're back.
Yeah. So. As I said, mate, it is really good to see you back in the big time, and to wind the clock back a little bit. As I said, what it is with Fulham, I think for me, is they've always had players that I've liked. Like I know he joined quite later on in his career, but I was always a big fan of Scott Parker. Players like Clint Dempsey, Mark Schwarzer. They were all really good players, and not just that, the connection between Everton and Fulham in terms of players that have crossed paths and played for both sides of it. I think it's something like 18 players, just to name a few: Andy Johnson, Thomas Rosiński, Johnny Heitinga, Louis Saha. It is quite incredible. So on this current squad of players, who should we look out for? Who are the star players in this new squad?
Well, obviously, we'll touch on this in a bit, but our summer was incredibly busy, and obviously Mitrovic is going to be the guy that you're going to have to keep an eye on. He's obviously had a great second half of the season with us last season, and he started off this season just as well. We didn't think he would be as prolific, I don't think, because obviously it was a step up. He hadn't quite done it with Newcastle, and we thought maybe the Championship was just kind of, he was just storming through that. Turns out, no, he's actually just really good, which is great. We've got, obviously, Schürrle. He's been playing really well since he joined us from Dortmund. Jean-Michel Seri, who a lot of people were talking about being linked with Barcelona last year. He's come in, and we were just like, well, why? He's joined us, great. How good is he? Turns out he's very good. And he's a bit lightweight in the tackle, which some people have picked up in the last couple of weeks, because we've lost Tom Kearney to injury, although I think he's back in the squad this weekend. But he won Goal of the Month for August. That sort of cracker against Burnley, and he's just very, very talented. In terms of our defence, fans are sort of picking up on this so far, is that we've been unsure about what our best back four is. We brought in quite a few players there. We brought in Alfie Mawson from Swansea, who's injured, I believe, tomorrow. Tim Ream, who was our player of the season last season, has been injured since pre-season. But he played an hour against Millwall on Tuesday. So he may be back in the team. We brought in Callum Chambers from Arsenal, who has had a bit of hit and miss start to the season. And also a guy called Maxime Lamarchand, who came in from Nice along with Seri. So we kind of got these players, and we brought in Fonsu Mensah from Man U, who's actually looked really good, because we lost Ryan Fredericks to Everton in the summer. And so having him sort of as an option at right back along with Cyrus Christie has been quite a good one. The issue that we have had is at left back, where everyone's favourite up and coming youth star Ryan Sessegnon seems to have been filling in. Even though everyone's fairly convinced he's definitely not a left back, he's a left winger. But we've got him and Joe Bryan, who we got from Bristol City, have been playing there so far. So it's a bit chop and change at the back. So we've definitely got to watch out for your sort of attacking style of play, which you seem to be sort of using this season against our slightly sort of all over the place defence, I think. Yeah,
and just because it seems very in trend and topical to talk about right now, obviously making his debut against Millwall the other night, Harvey Elliott, the first player to play in English football, born in 2003, which bloody hell doesn't have to make me feel old. But I'm just under 20 years older than him, which makes me really sad. Any particular thoughts? Will he go on to be some sort of big star? Or
I don't know a huge amount about him. I know he stepped up to the under-18s. He played. He went along with the senior team on the training camp in Spain during the international break. People say he's a very exciting player. but he's 15. I haven't really paid too much attention to that level. But great. I mean, he's already been linked with some of the big names. And he's got to sort out his little man bun that he's got going on. I mean, he's 15. How can you get away with that?
I know.
But I think he's sort of, he's definitely one to keep an eye on. I don't think we'll be seeing him in the first team squad in the Premier League anytime soon. But,
as you say, it's always great to have that firing line of young talent coming through. But so just onto the summer, and you mentioned some of the names there: Andrei Schürrle, Mitrovic, Vieto, Seri, Mawson. They are all, kind of gems picked from Europe that you wouldn't necessarily expect to join a club that's just been promoted. So to me, that shows a real statement of intent from Fulham as a club, and obviously from Khan as the owner. I was just wondering, what was your reaction to all that transfer activity, and are you happy with the direction that Khan's taken the club?
First off, absolutely delighted with what he's doing. I think when sort of going back to that first season that he took over, which was our last in the Premier League last time round, we weren't quite sure how he was playing it. We didn't know if he was coming in. It was just seen as, investing in a Premier League team, we'd have another sort of, Ellis Short on our hands in terms of American owners coming over. But he's just invested steadily, sensibly over the last few years. And then, we were sort of like, when we got to the Premier League, we looked at sort of how Cardiff were playing it, because they were sort of first off in the transfer market. And it's like, spending a couple of million here, a couple of million there on sort of championship quality players. Yeah. We're like, is this the kind of player that we're going to attract? And sort of next thing you know, we're bringing in this guy who was supposed to sign for Barcelona last year for 27 million. It's like, okay, I'll take that. Yeah. And it just sort of, the players that were coming in, we were just looking at, this is brilliant. Schürrle, I mean, a huge fan of him. I mean, he may have played for Chelsea, but when he was there, I mean, the talent that guy had. And, obviously World Cup winner, which is nice. And then then a few more started coming in. And then on transfer deadline day, there were rumours of Fonsu Mensah and keeper and stuff. We brought in 5 players on transfer deadline day. And none of them we looked at and go, why did we sign him?
Yeah.
Actually, no, we signed a third keeper, and now we're back to our keeper from last season, which is a little bit odd. Yeah. But the overall, I mean, the statement of intent was incredible. The quality of players is brilliant. And I think the only thing that we're missing right now has been time for them to gel completely.
Yeah, we can definitely relate to that from an Everton point of view, because I think we're suffering quite from the players not gelling just yet, particularly under the new manager as well. Just on Shad Khan as well, obviously the news has come out recently that the FA has agreed to sell Wembley to Khan for just over £600 million. I was wondering, as a Fulham fan, is there anybody that might interfere with the operations of Fulham, or any particular thoughts on it?
No, I don't think it'd be detrimental to how we operate. I think Shad Khan is a businessman primarily. Fulham is one of his particular sort of business interests. Wembley is just another one. I mean, he's just seeing that as an opportunity to, one, grow the NFL market in the UK, and two, just as that is a stadium where you can hold events throughout the year. Yeah. I mean, he had the money available. The offer was right, sort of in terms of the value of it. So I think from his point of view, I just think he saw it as a ideal sort of purchase for his business interests more than anything. So I don't think from our point of view, it will cause any issues. No. Obviously, when you buy something just up the road of that size, you're thinking, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Obviously, if we are redeveloping part of the stadium. If we decided to do any more, we need somewhere to live for a bit. We'll probably just go up there.
Yeah, may have to do it.
Better than Loftus Road, anyway.
Yeah,
so.
May have to do it Tottenham. Just on Saturday's game, and it shocked me. I remember I was answering a few questions for yourselves, Fulham Focus, and when I saw how poor Fulham's record is at Goodison Park, it shocked me. It really did shock me. And obviously, coming from an Everton perspective, Everton have a real tendency to, if something's riding on the game, like if someone hasn't picked up a point or someone hasn't scored in so long, they're gonna get the goal against Everton. It's just something about Everton, mate. We are that type of club. I was just wondering, have you any thoughts on Marco Silva's start at Everton, and how do you think the game's going to go tomorrow?
I mean, I like Silva in the sense he plays football in the right way. He seems to sort of the attacking style, which is always sort of the best to watch. I mean, you kind of. I think it's such a shock to the system there because you've had sort of a few seasons of playing fairly sort of tentatively. Sort of a good mate of mine is an Everton fan, and when Martinez left, I think he was about to throw a street party. So it's like, but I think he's playing the right way. They've been sort of from an outsider's point of view being entertaining to watch. I watched the Arsenal game last week and it was pretty poor. But you go away to Arsenal, it's not always going to work out. In terms of how the game will go tomorrow, our record, as you say, is pitiful. It's I was there for the last 2 seasons that we played up there when we lost 1-0 and then we lost 4-1. And it's just, you go up there and you just know you're not going to get a result. I don't know what it is. Psychologically, I think there must be something ingrained in the sort of club. We've got the team that we'll have out tomorrow. Excuse me. Team we'll have out tomorrow has no players crossing over with the last time we played there.
Yeah.
Yet we're probably still going to lose because it's Everton away. I think it'll be high scoring. I think it'll probably be something like I don't know. I'm going to, from a optimistic point of view, I'll say 2-2. But I think it'll definitely be. We'll definitely concede a couple, but I think we'll score.
Oh, but as I say, mate, just as advice, don't go into this game thinking that you're not going to get nothing, because, as I said, when something's riding on the game, like West Ham did a fortnight ago, they picked up just a second win at Goodison in 11 years, and just little trends like that. But from an Everton fan point of view, it's tailor made for you to break the curse, really.
Well, that would be great, because I don't think we've won there since the FA Cup in 1975. And I think the last time we got a result was in the FA Cup in 2004. We drew 1-1. But I was looking at the sort of like the scores today, and it's just sort of like straight down the line, Everton home wins. But it was like that at Craven Cottage for quite a few seasons. It was, we just gave 3 points each for most of those games until sort of one end of season game, I think.
Yeah, so, we're really looking forward to it. I can't wait to be back at Goodison, Morgan. It was great to talk to you, mate. Thanks for coming on. And just to end on, to get away from the football, the traditional opposition view question. What's your favourite film?
Well, I actually work in film, so this should be an easy answer. But actually, it's a film called With Nail and I.
I've not watched it, but as a film,
it's Richard E. Grant and what's his name? I can't remember. But it's about 2 struggling actors who drink too much and get lost on holiday. But,
I'll add it to the list. Sounds like a good watch. Morgan, just plug yourself, mate. Tell us where we can find your work, etc.
So as I said, I'm sort of from a group of fans called Fulham Focus. We're on Twitter at Fulham_Focus, FulhamFocus.com. And basically, we're essentially a resource for Fulham fans and football fans in general, really, because we have a lot of Q&As with ex-Fulham players who obviously we'll talk about sort of their careers, who, there'll be crossover with other teams. We have a podcast, bunch of audio Q&As as well, and just sort of general articles, bits and pieces. So it's actually, it's great. We sort of built up a good following. We've got 18 of us in the team. So yeah, it's a good place just to sort of, just talk about Fulham, talk about football generally, really.
Brilliant. Morgan, thanks for coming on, mate. It was great to have the chance to talk to you.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Max.
Great. So there we are. Hopefully you enjoyed the interview. I certainly enjoyed listening to Morgan and some of his educated insight into what's gone on at Fulham over the past 4 years since they got relegated from the Premier League, and basically what the path's been for them to get back into the Premier League. Of course, it was really interesting also discussing the fact that Everton and Fulham have shared 18 players, so 18 players have played for both Fulham and Everton over the last few years, and they were certainly fan favourites at both clubs during certain parts. So that was also really interesting to listen to, as well as things like Fulham's ownership, what's gone on there, and the current state of their team. So as I say, make sure you check out the Toffee Blues on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You know where to find them. I've been Max from the Toffee Blues. Come on, you Blue Boys.